Hello, I'm Lino Tadros, and I'm happy to show you how to test Xamarin Form's application in TestComplete 12.5. I could actually use this on my own device, whether it's an iPhone or an Android or an iPad, but I'm actually going to start a Genymotion. Genymotion in here will allow you to have so many different virtual devices for Samsung Galaxy S8 and Sony phones and Google phones and so on. I'm going to start a Galaxy S8 right now, which is the API 26. Let's go ahead and start that. And that will actually have the Genymotion running the S8 right here for Samsung, and we'll keep it here on the side for the screen, and we'll minimize this for a second. I would like to actually go ahead and open up TestComplete 12.5 at this point. I'm going to go ahead and create a brand new project. We'll call it Test Project 29 is fine with me. We'll just use the JavaScript language as the language behind the scenes. My main interest in this is to go to the object browser and take a look, for instance, what's happening in the background in here. You'll notice that is the mobile section for the object browser was able to determine that the device, the Samsung S8, is running in the emulator for Genymotion, which is great. If you take a look at the advanced view to see all the properties for the device right now in TestComplete, some of these things will have red X's next to them. And the reason for that is the Genymotion right now does not have the TestComplete Android agent installed. And that's easy to fix that problem. So the first thing when you first install all that stuff, click on the Show Mobile screen all the way at the top. There you go. And that will mirror exactly what we're seeing in the Genymotion. And it will tell you that you don't have the TestComplete Android agent running. So let's go ahead and enable that. And that will take a few seconds and it will install an app. And there you go, it has been installed successfully. And I can go back now in the phone itself. And if I open up the applications on this phone, you will notice there is a new app in here called the TestComplete Agent for Android. Has it been installed? This has to be in there so that TestComplete object browsers can see everything on the phone itself. I'm going to keep the mobile screen here on the side for a little bit. We'll go back to the home screen if we want. And now we'll take a look at all the different things available on the device itself. I can see the IP address or the device ID. I can see also the sensors that are all in here. I can actually go through all the different sensors one by one, all 6 of them from 0 to 5. So there is a lot of great information. Even the OS info, I can open this up and I can see which version of Android is running inside of the Genymotion and everything of that kind. So this is great information just for the device itself running in Genymotion. Okay, I will not see a plus sign next to the device to show me all the different applications running. That's because nothing on the device itself is running currently that has been instrumented using the TestComplete instrumentation routines. And we would like to do that in a second. All right, I am going to go ahead and minimize TestComplete for a second, and I'm going to go to Visual Studio 2017 here. I actually created a small little app in Xamarin Forms. And in Xamarin Forms, I have it available for Android and for iOS. I did not bring in the Windows one, but you are more than welcome to have the Windows one as well available in here. I only have the Android and iOS, and I'm going to concentrate on the Android one right now because I don't want to spend a lot of time on the doing all the information needed to be able to sign and to do whatever you need to do to get the iOS app on the device itself. But I'll do that in a future video as well, so you can see the steps for that. For Android, it's much easier. I will be able to compile the app. Let's say it has to be actually in the release mode. It cannot be in debug mode. And then I'll actually compile the Android version, not the iOS version. And I can tell it to run it directly in my Genymotion Samsung S8. I have a lot of different phones in here, emulators that I can run it in. As you can see here for API 25 and 15 and 23, different kind of devices. I can actually add more devices. I can also use the Xamarin Live Player. All the stuff is available in here. I'm going to use my Genymotion because it's the one that starts the fastest in all of them, and I like that about it. So let's go ahead and click on deployment, and that will compile the entire app and will release it directly into the Genymotion application. And there is the application running inside of my Genymotion for Samsung Galaxy S8. There is the application. It had some of the great products from Smart Bear. And I can actually click on the About box, for instance, in here. I'll get the app name. I just use the default in Visual Studio. But in here, I can click on one of the items in this specific list view. So if I click on the first item, TestComplete 12.5, that will move in to navigate me to another page that will have the description and will have the text. And I can always click on the back button in here in Android to go back. As a matter of fact, this back button is in a different place for iPhones, for instance, and iPads. But if I click on it, that will move me back in here. I'm using the Genymotion itself, but I can also do it from inside of TestComplete, the show mobile as well. So let me go ahead and bring this down. And I'll go here. There is the mobile screen inside of TestComplete, and it's functional as well. See, if I click on the TestComplete 12.5 in here, it will navigate me. I can click on the back button, and it will bring me back as well. Great. Now let's go ahead and take a look in the object browser if I could see this app. Notice there are still no plus signs next to the device, because this application is not instrumented yet. Does that mean I cannot test this app? No, you can still test it. You're just not going to be using objects inside of it. So when I actually start a recording session, for instance, it will be doing all the clicks and all the X and Y coordinates on the screen as far as an image repository. So you see, if I come in here for a keyword test, for instance, and click on record, it's going to go ahead and start the recording session. And now I can actually go to the app and I click on the TestComplete 12.5. It will actually navigate me, and I can click on back, and all the stuff is working. And when I go back and say stop at this point, it tells me you will need to add to the project an image repository. So I can give it a name, and I'm going to say OK there. And now it's going to create me a lot of things that has nothing really to do with the objects in the application itself. It doesn't know that there is a list view or the ID of the list view or the properties and functions available on the list view. It has no idea about all that stuff. But you can still actually definitely do the testing using the image repository. And notice here there is a selection of a device. Let me move this a little bit down so you can see it. It selected a device with the Samsung Galaxy, and then it did a text view test complete, and it clicked on something here, image touch, and then another image touch, and even the test visualizer at the bottom was able to tell exactly what you did. So all the stuff will work. It just doesn't know anything about the objects inside of here. Okay, so let's go ahead now and try to instrument the app to actually make it a lot more compelling to test mobile apps inside of TestComplete. All right, I'm going to go ahead back to Visual Studio. And there are three things that you need to do. First of all, you will go to the project and the solution that has to do with Android. And notice there is here a tab for references. And you will need to add 3 different references to assemblies inside of here. It used to be only one during the native apps for Xamarin, but now you need to add 3 different references. Okay? So I'm going to right click on the references here in Visual Studio. I'll say add a reference. And I'm going to say browse. And what you need to do is you need to go to the TestComplete 12 folder, bin, extensions, and Xamarin Forms under Android. There will be 2 of them. There is one for iOS and one for Android. I'm going to start with the Android one. There are 2 assemblies there. One is called patch services, and one is called smartbear.xf agent, which is Xamarin Forms agent.android. So I'm going to actually be able to bring in these 2 together like this, and would say add. Notice they will be both checked right in here. Make sure they are both checked, okay? And also go to the assemblies one all the way at the top, and you'll need to find one that's called Mono Android Export. These 3 are the most important one that you'll need to have brought in. We'll say okay. We'll wait a few seconds, and then make sure in references in here on the right side, you'll have 3 of these files available in the references. And there we go. There is one that's called Mono Android Export. There is the patch services, and then the SmartBear XF Agent.Android. I'm almost done. So this is all the stuff that you need to do to make sure the application will be instrumented for Android. The only thing left is the main activity.cs file that was created in this project has an onCreate. That means something will have to happen early on in the application. The only thing you'll have to do is to add one line in here to be able to initialize the Java hook for that specific Xamarin Form agent. So I'll come in here, for instance, say smartbear.xfagent.android. And we'll use the Java hook, and we will do an initialize on this guy. And we will be passing actually this .application for the application object. Application, like that, and we are done. And there we go. So this is the only line that is needed, folks. SmartBear, XF Agent, Android, Java hook, initialize, and you will pass the object for the application itself. All right, I'll save that, and let's go ahead and compile the entire app. We'll right click and say build. And now I'm ready to send it back to the Genymotion again with this one line of code after we added the 3 references as well. The compilation is great, and its deployment happened already. If I open up Genymotion, there is the application instrumented running in here. And if I open up TestComplete, let me minimize all that stuff. and in TestComplete itself, we will actually have the application running. The only difference now, if I go to the object browser, look how great that is. A plus sign will show up next to the device itself under mobile. And if I open it up, I will see the process. The application is called TC 12.5 new features. And if I open up the process, I will see everything. And it has the icon for Xamarin Forms. It's an XF object for Xamarin Form object. So I was able to realize there is a browse tab, the navigation patch for the about. I can open this up and see all the objects on the inside, which is really terrific. And even the list item, the items list view itself, you'll notice here there is tons of properties available. One of them will be, for instance, the W item count, because I have 6 items in the list. There is 6 of them. So I can actually iterate, for instance, with a for each loop or something, through every single item in that loop using scripting, for instance, whether it's Python or JavaScript or any other language that you prefer in TestComplete. Alrighty, even the about box in here, you'll notice if I go to the about page, for instance, you will notice here there is the app name 1.0. I want to find out where this guy is. So hopefully you can actually use the object spy, for instance. We'll click on that and we'll drag this until we see the object for the app name. See the red rectangle around the app name in the mobile screen. If I release the mouse, it will recognize automatically the object. It's labeled number 1. Let's click on the tree view here to bring it back to the object browser, and I can close this dialog. And there it is highlighted. The XF object label number 1 is the one that says app name 1.0. There are a lot of different properties in here that has the little donut next to it. These are read and write properties. So you probably can tell one of them hopefully will be called text in here, to the text representation, like this guy. So I can actually take that property, I can write code for it, I can actually do whatever I want with it. So if you highlight the name of the property, I can actually now say select or copy all, and I can take this entire line and put it into my code in here. Let's say I'm going to go to advanced, open up the script for unit 1. We'll say function test me, for instance, like this. And inside of here, I will actually paste that entire line I got from there. That will get you the mobile device with the process that is running all the way to the object. So we're dealing with objects now. We're actually not dealing with specific images on the screen. So I can come in here and I can say equals Lino was here, for instance, like this. And if I execute this code by right clicking and say run the current routine, look what happens to the show mobile screen in here. There it says. See, I've changed something in the application running in Genymotion, and now the label says Lino was here, so I can do all that stuff. Sounds good. Let's see also what I can do by doing a recording. So let's go ahead and record in a script, for instance. I'm going to click on the recorder. TestComplete will minimize itself, and now TestComplete is in recording mode. I'm going to go ahead and click on the first index, index number 0, and here we'll click on that for TestComplete 12.5, and that will navigate me to a completely different page. And now I can see the text and the description. And if I want to go back, click on the back button right there at the top in Android, and that will take me back. So let's go ahead and stop and see what exactly TestComplete did for us in JavaScript right now for that recording. As you can see in here, now it's not using images, it's using real objects. So I'm going to move this a little bit down. Notice it selected the device. And the nice thing about selected the device is that you can leave all your code written as is, and then you can change the devices on the first line. It can go from a Samsung Galaxy Ace to a Sony to a Google phone, and you can also go to an iOS phone or an iPad or whatever, but the code does not have to change. And that's the nice thing about the Xamarin Forms, is all of it will be based on the same exact code. Alrighty? So there you go, you got to the process for the application, the TC 12.5 new features, and then it found an items list view right there. Alrighty, and notice it actually did a touch on the screen. It did a touch item on an X and Y coordinates. Don't let this 420 and 92 bother you very much. A lot of people get scared that this has to do with the screen resolution. In reality, it's the first 0 that we care about. The first 0 is the touch item index itself. We have 6 items in here going from 0 to 5, and it's actually clicking on the first item, which is index number 0. This 420 and 92 is that because TestComplete found out that you clicked in a very specific place inside of that first cell. So maybe that's important to you to click exactly in that pixel inside of that first cell. In reality, if I change this 420 and 92 to 0 and 0, it will still work because I'll be clicking somewhere inside of the index item 0 itself. Alrighty? And the nice thing also at the end, when I clicked on the back button, it didn't use something specific to Android. It just says touch back button, and it was actually touched. And that means when I run the same exact code on an iPhone or an iPad, this back button will be in a completely different place on the screen. It'll probably be at the bottom of the screen. And this code will still work. It's not using any placement. It's using the API and letting Xamarin Forms do its thing by going and touching the back button right away. Does that make sense? So that makes it a lot easier to write the code once and then run all your code for Xamarin Forms for testing on all the devices, whether it's Android, whether it's iPhone, iPads, and the hundreds of different flavors of Android as well with different type of screens. The code does not have to change anymore. So this would be a great addition to the family for TestComplete. I hope you enjoyed this video, and hopefully we'll see you again in a future video with TestComplete.